What has been in the 40 years of your, you know, research and dedication to the immune system, but also understanding nutrition and food and farming and all these different areas of the body and also just human nature and nature in general? What has been the biggest transformation in the last 4 decades that you've seen in the, I guess, the medical system and the health and wellness space? So that's number one.
Yeah.
And what do you see is going to happen over the next couple of decades that is possible for the medical system and health and wellness that hasn't happened yet?
So let's both take a deep breath, oxygenate our neurons, because this is the dream state that I'd like to capture this moment.
Okay.
So I'm going to use a symbol to answer your question because your question is so omnibus and so important that I want to use something that people might be able to identify. So what is something that we, sitting at this table, can show as a symbol of a change that no human species in the experience of this planet has ever had that relates directly to their potential health outcome? And I'm going to show you it. This is an Oura ring.
Uh-huh.
This is
Apple
an
Watch.
Apple Watch.
Yeah.
Biometrics.
Uh-huh.
No human culture or human being prior to the last 10 years has been able to measure their biology 24/7, 365.
Right.
Now, what happens is when you can do that, you start owning your body at a different level. It's like continuous glucose monitoring that people are putting on their bodies. Now, let me give you an example of this. Early on with SARS-CoV-2, I've been wearing my Oura ring and my Apple Watch time since beginning. I noticed that my Oura ring was telling me that my readiness score in the morning, which was constant in the 80s or maybe in the low 90s, my readiness score for 2 days went down. And I thought, well, why is that? Why did my readiness score? I'm doing all the same things. Readiness score is a calculated algorithm on this that measures your heart rate while you're sleeping, your body temperature and sleeping, your heart rate variability, your pulse rate, and your oxygen, and your sleep and fitness by steps, and it was going down. Now my life had not changed, so why would it go down? In fact, it changed so much that it went one day down to 60, where it was normally in the high 80s.
You still had the same routine, went to bed at the same time,
That's right.
ate the right foods, all that stuff.
Okay. 3 days later, I got sick.
Oh. So it prompted you.
My immune system is what I was measuring.
Wow.
I wrote an article on this. I did a series of blogs. They went viral. And the Oura Ring company now has all sorts of studies going on to use this biometric as a way of starting to assess your immune system.
If it's weakening, if
That's
something
right.
is under attack.
Early warning. So these tools that we have, and now of course the Apple Watch, you can measure your cardiac rhythm. You can measure your oxygen sat. Soon you'll be able to measure your glucose and blood pressure. Once you are able to do that 24/7, you have a laboratory of your body that no one's ever had access to.
Wow.
Now you can start to tune, you can be your personal coach. Now, the reason that I think that's so powerful is that in the medical world of today, we don't have all the resources that are available to treat each person individually. The best we can do is for people to go to the emergency room when they got a problem and hopefully get the best of care. But the daily tuning up of your body based on your aspirations for good health, we just don't have all the resources capable of doing that. These tools provide us that opportunity. And so now what I'm witnessing is a transformation in which the disease care system is starting to de-dock and separate from the healthcare system. And I've been saying for 40 years that health can't be owned by the disease care system. There are just two different languages to it. There's nothing wrong. In fact, there is a lot of good things about the disease care system, but you can't have health owned by disease care. Health has to be over here personalized and accessible with a whole different set of tools.
And also disease care system, I guess, really has no incentive of you being healthy in
Well,
terms
there
of
is-
financially.
There is that as well.
So there's a conflict of interest
Yeah.
because they want you buying something that you need to take so that you're like preventing the disease just enough, but not fully curing it so you can keep buying it, right?
Well, let me give an example that's very, to me, optimistic, and it is a feel-good experience. So when we started the Institute for Functional Medicine in 1991, there was a lot of pushback from my colleagues saying, Jeff, your advocacy is noble, but you're never going to get docs who are already licensed to go back and pick up these textbooks and to study biology and cell function and nutrition and so forth, pathology, immunology, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they've already been through enough school. They're sick and tired of it. They're licensed. They're not going to do that. Well, I'm here to say, 32 years later, that these individuals, these several 100,000 people that we've had the privilege of working with, demonstrate that's not right. There are impassioned, dedicated people that take time out of their practices at their own financial loss. They go home at night and they study these textbooks that they have a need to know. They come back and they take hard exams to be certified that are as hard as their board certifying exams. They are totally dedicated to patient care and to what I call re-enchanting themselves to why they went into medicine.
Right.
The problem that doctors have today often is they had advocacy, and I can say this having been a medical school professor and seeing the light of excitement in these young people's eyes that they were going to go out and help the world. Then I see them 30 years later when they're worn out and tired and they've just had that spark just drained out of them because they don't feel like they're really getting people well. They feel like they're a surrogate to the drug company prescribing medicines. So when we can give these people the opportunity to really work with patient-centered healthcare and see the results that these things produce in terms of upstream root cause outcomes, they are exalted to go to their books and to dedicate themselves. So I'm very optimistic that we're watching a transformation occur right before our eyes.
Really? So that's the biggest thing. Do you feel like everyone should be tracking in some way, whether it's a ring or a watch or something? Do you feel like that's...
Well, I think there are different
glucose monitor, all these things.
I'm sure you found this in your people you speak to and your friends and colleagues. There are different levels of geekism.
Yes.
I mean, some people, I'm probably way on the edge of the biohacker. And times I was wearing, multiple different kinds of devices. I'm way out the edge. But I think that there will become more and more acceptance of these tools as they become cosmetically attractive. They don't look clunky.
They're not bulky.
And the information, this is the key, doesn't require them to be expert. It goes to the cloud automatically. It gets AI'd with generative AI. It comes back to them in a usable way that's personalized to their language, their culture, their ethnicity, their desires. And now we truly get a personalized healthcare system.
That's interesting. If you could only use one device consistently, would you use the ring or the watch? If you had to pick one.
I've had such an intimate relationship with my rings because I got this for the first generation. And this is a new Apple Watch for me, but I probably, just for the convenience, stay with the ring.
Stay with the ring. But you feel like the Apple Watch gives you a lot of data too?
Well, now the Apple Watch has your cardiac rhythms on it, which you don't have on your...
Interesting, the ring. Gotcha.
So different tools for different things you're interested in.
Wow. Okay. This is fascinating. What else do we need to know about balancing and harmonizing our immune system, or anything else that you feel like we should be aware of to prepare and optimize performance over these next few years?
Well, you asked me the question, and I thought it was a really good leader question, and why did I land on immunity? And we've gone around this topic, from different angles. Immunity is a way station, a point of entry. There are many doors into health. It just happened that given all the concerns that people had relative to infectious disease, that immunity was the topic du jour. But it's not the only way to get into health. You could get into health fitness and cardiovascular fitness and musculoskeletal fitness. You could get into it through gastrointestinal fitness. You could get in through neurological fitness. It's my belief that there are 4 quadrants of function that people aspire to perform at high levels. And those quadrants, I discuss this in my book, Disease Delusion, because I thought it was a concept that most people probably not familiar with. So what are the 4 quadrants? There's physical function, which is your body motion, mechanics, biomechanics, muscles, bones, ligaments, tendons, all that mechanical nature. There is metabolic function, which is the mechanism of physiology that goes on inside our body. There is cognitive function, which is you do quite a bit on your podcasts on that and do a beautiful job. And then there is behavioral function, which has to do with the nature of how we relate and act in the world around us from the information that we're processing, our cultural backgrounds, our belief systems, our attitudes. When all four of those are tuned up, we're a complete human being, and we have the best day in our lives.
Whole, healthy, happy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Most of us probably don't experience all those tuned up in the same day all the time.
Right.
So we're constantly in aspiration. But some people of those fours have more common problems in one of them than the others. And that is maybe where they want to start. And so that's what we've tried to do in this Big Bold Health model, was we've tried to say, we want to give you a point of entry into owning your health. And the immune system is a place, because the immune system so rapidly responds to what you're doing, that you'll get quick feedback.
Yes.
And we all like to get quick feedback. We like to know what we did really made a difference. We don't want to just move a number.
Right.
We want to move our performance.
Sure.
So that's kind of how we landed on the immune system, but it's not the only gateway into taking charge of our health.
What's your biggest fear and concern at this season of your life, with all the information you have, with where you're at personally and professionally, and where you see things happening in the future?
Well, at 77, as I was saying to you, I hope that's a double sevens. That means a lucky double sevens.
Yes.
But clearly, the number of years ahead are less than the years behind. That's a fact. So what's my singular most important commitment to whatever those days ahead might bring is to do a pay forward. I've had a privileged life. I've traveled 6 million miles. I've met extraordinary people like you, people that are advocating for others to be better, for our society to improve, for culture to be more understanding and tolerant and benevolent, and for people to have joy. And that experience that I've shared with so many people just got passed through my lens because of my background in biosciences and the way that I communicated. But it is really an advocacy that I have the responsibility, because of this fortune, to pay forward. And I pay forward through watching how my grandchildren are responding to their grandfather as kind of a litmus test, and how people that are now becoming the leaders, how they're picking up and modifying what I've been trying to advocate for a number of years. And is some of this stuff sticky that I've been doing? And if it's not, why? And can I modify the way I'm languaging it in a way that makes it more sticky? So my thing is all about pay forward. And, I'm in a very privileged place. I don't have to make a living. The college education for my grandchildren are all put away in trust funds.
Amazing.
My wife and I are very fortunate. We have no debts. So if we have bad days, it's our own fault.
Right.
And so, what do we want to do with those days? And how do we want to leverage the fortune that we've had? And that's why, to me, Big Bold Health is more than just a name, because being bold about your health means you're not apologetic. You state who you are, you're transparent, and you try to advocate for other people to both aspire and achieve that which is given to them, to have great lives.
Right. Wow, it's beautiful. So what is Big Bold Health, and how can we get involved?
Well, we everybody can go to our website. We've got all sorts of podcasts and information there about all sorts of things. I was mentioning to you early on that I was told by one of my colleagues that I was maybe one of the earliest podcasters, because in 1979, I started a series of educations called Functional Medicine Update on audio cassette tape that then transferred over to CD later, and later transferred to Sticks, later went livecast. I did it for 31 years, never missing a month.
That's amazing.
And I had subscribers to that all 31 years, so long that their kids had become doctors.
Amazing.
Had started to subscribe. So I think there are so many ways that we can give and be purposeful and have a life of meaning and still be who we need to be in the world.
Right. That's beautiful. And there's a program at Big Bold Health as well that we can go through, or what?
Yeah, we have what's called the Immunity Plus program, which is a 90-day program. We have an app that guides people, that has daily lessons. introducing a person to ownership of their immune system. And we just finished a very interesting clinical trial that was clintrials.gov registered. You can look it up on the clintrials.gov website, in which we looked at the effect of these Himalayan tartary buckwheat nutrients on the immune age of 50 human beings. And we found people that had aged immune systems, we could reduce their immune age by within 90 days by 6 to 7 years.
Come on.
Yeah.
So their biological age you could put back in time.
Precisely.
Just from this one ingredient?
Well, it's a combination of all the ingredients within Himalayan tartary buckwheat.
Really? But by taking this Himalayan tartary buckwheat, is that how you call it?
Now, why tartary?
After 90 days,
yes,
you could reverse the biological age
of people that had immune age that was greater than their chronological age. We could reduce it.
Oh, wow. Oh, so it was greater than the chronological age. You could reduce it back to their kind of chronological.
In some cases, below their chronological age.
Oh, my gosh. 90 days to take this? I got to take this. Okay. This is amazing.
Well,
so this has been documented. This is everything.
Yeah. We're just writing up the paper for publication, and we've.
Wow.
And the other thing we did, which you might find interesting, is because we've started now to understand the interrelationship between the immune system of the soil to the immune system of plants, to the immune system of animals, to the immune system of people who eat those animals, we started to ask the question, what would happen if we re-nourished the soil of our farms? Now, our farms, recall, are all organically certified. They've been at least 20 years organic. These are good farmers. And in fact, we have a little video on our website at Harvest. And when you hear the stories from our farmers and our millers, you can't help but be impressed with how passionate they are what they're doing. And so we started, we have a soil scientist, Dr. Emily Reese at Cornell, PhD, that works for us on this project. And so we started inoculating the soil with different friendly bugs, like its own microbiome. And then we asked the question at the harvest, did we change the level of these phytochemicals so that we can enhance the level of these nutrients? And lo and behold, we can. By improving the immune system of the soil, we improve the immune system of the plants, which then improve
the animals.
Right.
Wow.
So this is a web that we're living in, a web of interaction. We tend to segment things out. We have kind of an anthropocentric view of humans and then everything else, but we're all part of this web of interaction.
Wow.
And the more we study it, the more we understand how we're interconnected.
This is amazing. I want people to go to your website, Big Bold Health. They can go there and learn more about this. Do you have also a list of farms around the country that is using these processes to enhance the soil and the farming system, or no?
That's a really good question. We haven't actually, we've got that list, but we've never actually published it. And I would be maybe a little bit wary as to how we would do that, because we probably offend somebody that we missed.
Gotcha.
You know how it is if you say, well, what about me? And we didn't know about you. So
looking at you, every year you can update it.
Yeah,
you can update it every quarter.
Exactly.
And you say, hey, okay, you petition to be on this. Okay, interesting. Well, I want to acknowledge you, Dr. Jeff, for your 40 plus years of dedication to this cause, this mission of helping people have better performance with their overall health, with their immune system, with looking at their health as this web and not just as a parts that could have a disease or something, but looking at how everything plays into that. And for your joy for life, your joy for people, your joy for adventure and continual service. I'm really grateful for you on how you show up in the world. And I'm so glad we had this conversation. I have a couple final questions for you. This is called the 3 truths question. So imagine it's your last day many years away. You get to live many more decades and accomplish what you want to accomplish, live the way you want to live. And for whatever reason, all the things that you've ever published and the conversations in the books, it has to go away to the next place. But you get to leave behind 3 lessons with the world. And this is all we would have to remember your content from, these 3 truths. What would be those 3 truths for you?
Well, this is interesting. I did an exercise when I was in my 40s. I went to a personal development seminar, and one of the questions was, what would you like written on your tombstone? And that has not changed actually at all for me over the 37 years since that 40-year birthday. I said I'd like on my tombstone to say he was a teacher, because I think to be a good teacher, you have to be a good learner. You have to be a good listener. You have to be a person who understands difference of opinions and accepts and incorporates those that really work for you. So that would be one. But the others would be, I think that I would like people to recognize that health resides within all of our genes. And what happens is we get this derailed because we get subliminally seduced, we get marketed, time becomes compressed, we don't always make the most intelligent choices, and we become casualties of our own lifestyle and environment. And none of us are going to live perfect lives. That's not realistic. But I always believe in the 90% rules. People say, well, where would you start? I say, give up sugared soft drinks. That is the first step. No one should be drinking them. And then you can go down the list, right, of hierarchy. So to me is just people recognizing they're in charge of how their genes are going to express themselves into their function. And that we're getting information all the time from how we live in our environment that is translated by our genes into how we look, act, and feel. Obesity just doesn't happen magically. It happens because information that our genes are processing have given rise to the collection of calories for a rainy day that never comes in our fat mass.
Right.
So all these things tend to weave together about the importance for us being in charge of the most important, precious gift that we have ever been given, that makes us the jewel on the facet on the diamond of life, which is our genome. It's ours alone, and it'll never be duplicated unless we're cloned, which that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, of course. Okay, that's number 2. What's number 3?
Well, number 3, I think, is to recognize that that health is really determined by our function, not by the absence of disease. And in I think it was 47, when the World Health Organization was first being formed, it set a mandate as to what health would be, world health, and it was the full expression of physical, physiological, and mental and emotional health. It wasn't just, they didn't mention absence of disease once in that definition. I think that's what I would aspire for people to understand, that absence of disease is not the presence of health. Health is a determinant based on our function.
That's beautiful. Before I ask the final question, I'm curious, side question. What was the biggest lesson Coach Wooden taught you while playing at UCLA and winning a championship under him?
I think it was 2 lessons. It was discipline. He was a master of discipline. And it was respect. Respect for who you are. I'll never forget an occasion at a practice where one of the 5-star high school athletes that was recruited onto the team was not behaving within the context of the structure that Wood was advocating.
The ground rules.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he was a master of giving warnings, but you could tell they were well stated, clear. And on the second or third time, I can't remember, that this incident happened, he called out the player in the middle of practice as Mr. with his last name, showing respect, asked him to leave the court, and dismissed him from the team after practice. It was a big media thing because this person was going to be a star. He ended up going to the NBA later for a different school. And I thought I learned a lesson from that example of what respect is all about, respect for yourself, because it was that player that was disrespecting himself. He wasn't disrespecting the team or the coach. He was disrespecting himself. And he actually got himself into trouble when he was in the NBA.
Later in the NBA, yeah. He never learned the lesson, or he didn't.
That's right.
Interesting. Wow. So he dismissed him after a couple of warnings, he dismissed him from practice, then decided this guy's not good for our culture and our team.
That's correct.
He's not living up to the code that we have, the code of conduct or whatever it was. And so he removed him from the team, and then he transferred schools.
Yes.
And then went on to be a star player at another school and went
Yeah.
to the NBA.
And it was a big media thing on the LA Times, you know, and a lot of people thought this was
Bad
excessive.
move. Yeah, bad move.
But it was smart because that year Wooden won a national championship.
He
So
won that year.
yeah,
That was your sophomore year?
yeah.
And so he won. Was that his first national championship or no? He might have won a few before.
I think that was the second, actually. I think the freshman year was his first.
So he made a tough call to let go of a top, arguably one of the top athletes on the
Yeah.
team, the best players, maybe one of
Certainly
the best
from
top,
his pedigree, yes.
right? And said, "Hey, you're not right. You know, you might have a lot of talent, but that talent isn't welcome here if you're going to have this behavior. So I'm going to respectfully ask you to leave."
Yeah.
That's a bold move.
Very bold. But he was a man of great integrity. That's why he's still cherished by so many that knew him.
Wow.
I had two, other than my own father, I had two other male important figures, Wooden being one, and the second or the third was I had the privilege of taking 2 sabbatical year leave with Linus Pauling, 2-time Nobel Prize winning laureate at his institute at Stanford, and those three men really were very instrumental in forming my view as to what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it as a man.
That's beautiful. This is inspiring. I'm so glad that you're here and sharing everything. I've got the final question is, what's your definition of greatness?
To be respected by those people that you respect. You know, I've been criticized many times by many people because I've not always taken a politically kind of middle of the road opinion on certain things. But that's actually only sharpened my focus and allowed, because criticism can be a very powerful way of evaluating your own thoughts and principles. But it's how the people I greatly respect, how they respond, that is really, to me, the truth teller. It's the way that I evaluate how I'm proceeding. You don't want foods that activate your blood sugar. That is a tenet that connects to virtually every chronic disease when your blood sugar is out of control, not just diabetes.
High blood sugar, right?
High blood sugar. So that's called the glycemic effect of the food. Glycemic refers to the